All right, everybody, welcome to All Things Conversational. We're two entrepreneurs, one just getting started and one seasoned in the game. We dive into the real talk behind building and running a business. From day one dilemmas to scaling strategies, we're covering it all. No scripts, just
No
straight
strips.
conversations.
I'm Steve,
I'm Greg.
and this is all in conversational. Let's get at it.
Yeah, so what do you got?
Today we're going to talk about would you do it again? Would you, if you given the choice, make the choices that you did for you 4 or 5 years ago, for me almost 2 decades ago? If you could go back and say to yourself, Greg,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go be a mortgage agent,
Mm-hmm.
would you do it again?
So I think right off the bat, the short answer is yes.
Okay.
The short answer is yes, and I think it's only become more yes.
Oh, okay. I
So
wasn't expecting that. All right.
I think this was a long time coming.
What was?
Me running my own business or
Okay.
trying to run my own business. Let's
Okay.
call it
You're
that.
doing fine. Don't worry.
Um, I had always grown up in a family that ran their own businesses.
Oh, yeah, because your parents had a restaurant.
My mom ran a restaurant. My
Yeah.
dad was a truck driver.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, like a long distance truck
yeah.
driver? Oh, okay. All right.
And then my sister married into another Polish family where they run their own businesses, their own restaurants.
Okay.
My brother runs his own business.
What's your brother do?
He runs a physiotherapy clinic. He's a kinesiologist.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think I knew that. I
you
just don't
probably
remember.
knew
I
that.
don't. I don't remember stuff like that.
And throughout the industry I was in, I always worked for smaller companies.
Okay.
So one of the first co-op jobs I had, the company had existed for, 15, 20 years, and I was employee number 4.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason that happened was because the first field tech who ran retired. The second one had been there for years. They hired a third one. He was moving, and I was
Moving up.
actually just doing a co-op there.
Oh.
Second job, I worked for a small local company in like the grape growing industry. It was a small research contract I had.
Really?
Yeah. So, but I was only, um, they only ever hire summer students. I was the first other full-time employee they had one other person they ran full-time, and I was the third one they ever had run.
Wow.
I moved up north and I worked for a company that was actually 3 companies,
Okay.
and they had me start the third one. So the 3 of us each essentially ran a different arm of a company.
Right.
The 3 of us each running our,
Kind of cool.
and helping out. Really, I helped out all 3 companies. The other 2 ran their individual sides.
Right.
Is how it looked. When we moved back, I ended up working for one of the largest companies in the world in
Okay.
my field.
Yeah.
And I remember vividly some of the decisions that they used to make used to just like not make sense. And it was one of those things that just ended up like, you're like, why are you doing this? Like, this is goofy.
Yep.
You're bound up with so much red tape.
Yeah.
And I knew that I would never be able to start my own business in the industry I was in.
Why?
It's very saturated with the large engineering companies.
Okay.
They kind of have there's a lot of them out there, and the specific side I was in is like a support side to another. It's like a design side.
Okay.
And so if you were to ever run your own business, you'd be super boutique, and it would have been in 10, 15 years probably, once you have enough
Right.
contacts, once enough
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. It's funny because I didn't know some of that stuff, and I mean we've known each other for years, but I knew you'd been up north, but I didn't know that. So when you decided to get into the mortgage world, okay, I gotta ask, what? Okay, so you're a engineer by
No,
trade,
I was
kind of an engineer.
not even close.
Oh, really?
No, I was a geoscientist.
Okay, that to me is an engineer. In my head, that you're doing, really smart stuff. And then you decide mortgages.
Yeah.
What the hell were you thinking?
Well, part of the reason I got into what I got into, was it was actually there's a few reasons. One, I never wanted to work in a cubicle.
Okay, who does?
Okay,
Yeah.
but that was the one thing I knew. I said I don't want to. I want something that I can move job site to job site. I
Okay.
want to be out doing things.
Yeah.
Okay. And really like the outdoors. I've always been very outdoorsy and that kind of stuff. And so I got pushed into this kind of direction of things. So I worked a lot of environmental work. It moved to like the agricultural stuff for a year and a half. Moved up north, and I had a little bit of geophysics experience, and I kind of got into this geotechnical engineering company, and then I moved back down south, and I got to the job that I had been working for years,
Okay.
which was as a hydrogeologist. I was working kind of into that, which is you're supporting specifically. We either worked on mining or it was on municipal infrastructure upgrades.
Okay. That's
So
a boring way of saying you're a nerd.
boring is an understatement.
Oh, is it
So
really?
this is the problem.
Okay.
What ends up happening is that a lot of these municipal jobs are very cookie cutter in the sense that if somebody's putting in a new water main, a new sewer,
Yeah.
um, a lot of the work is the same,
Yeah.
right?
It's just different location.
It's different location. Our field work is a little bit different. Our soils are a little bit different. Yeah, like the stuff that
Yeah.
changes a bit, which changes a bit of our reporting, but a lot of it ends up being like,
Ugh, boring.
okay. And as you progress in that industry, um, the stuff that is fun is always the field work.
Sure.
That's where stuff goes wrong.
Oh,
I have some good
horror
stories,
stories?
right? One of my favorites that I ever mention is I had to be up at a mine. Okay, I'm on kind of on rotation for 2 weeks, once a month for a few months, and I had to take a co-op student in October. It was the last field program I was going to do before the winter
Okay.
because the mine we were at. Uh, are you familiar with where Wawa is in Ontario?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I actually do.
so I was an hour and a half north of Wawa
Oh, okay.
in a little town called Duberville,
Okay.
where the only industry historically was mining.
Yeah.
Mining dried up, and then it was the sawmill.
Okay.
The sawmill closed. Mining opened up again.
Oh, really?
The population is like 300.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so everybody's employed by the mining towns.
Right.
The graduating class was like 6 people in eight. Like
Oh,
they were like had their photos out.
yeah.
The, so I'm at this mine in the middle of nowhere, and I have to take a co-op student. She's fresh. It's
Okay.
October. She's on her first co-op term, second year.
Yeah.
And the job that day is I had to take, we're driving an Argo, which is like an off-road
Oh, I know
vehicle.
an Argo
Okay.
is. Yeah.
So I had to take that, a boat motor, and about $60,000 worth of gear.
Okay.
We drive an hour north of the mine site.
Okay.
You load up the motor to a tin boat that's waiting for you there that the locals have left for us.
Weird.
Okay. And I have to spend the day doing a few things on between these two lakes.
Okay.
So end of the day, and we only have so much time because the sun's setting. It's
Sure, it's
mid-October,
fall. Yeah.
right? So, and when I say that this co-op student was green, she was green.
Oh boy.
Okay. Never been in a boat, never done much field work. She got sent out because we were short-staffed.
Okay.
And so we're driving from our last spot on the day and I have to drive across a lake. And I've got good call. And I got a little outboard motor that I'm running with. And the one thing I didn't mention is that this boat is held together with tuck tape.
Oh, nice.
So as I'm driving, this boat starts taking on
I knew you were gonna
a
say
lot of
leak.
water.
Oh boy. Okay.
So she's sitting in the front,
Yeah.
and I have about $60,000 worth of very expensive equipment
Yeah.
that's rented
Oh boy.
in the center, and then me, and I'm actively bailing out the water while
No.
we're going across this lake.
Is she oblivious?
She's oblivious. She turns around, and I drop the bucket as if I'm not bailing. Didn't want to have her panic, but we had about 4 or 5 inches of water at the back. We're taking it on, and I'm going, and I had to bring us closer to shore because I go, there's a chance that this is actually going to sink.
Yeah.
We made it back. Everything's good. We didn't. We were using the Argo because you can get stuck anywhere out there.
Oh yeah.
There's spots that we were bottoming out, and I had a winch on this to get us out. Anyways,
Sounds like an adventure, oh.
that's the fun stuff of field work.
Right.
As you move up, you don't get to do that. You get
Right.
chained to a desk writing reports.
Yeah.
And that was the trajectory I was going on.
Okay.
We were in that process, and this mortgage world came to me by chance,
All right.
and so I wrote the test. I got licensed.
Okay, but there has to have been something. There has to, you say it's by chance, but I don't believe in chance. There has to have been something somewhere that said, you know, an action, a conversation.
Yeah, there was a conversation actually. It was between my brother and myself. We were talking about a mortgage agent that I had used and
Okay,
that we mutually knew. And I had found out that he also worked somewhere else.
right.
And I remember
Oh,
thinking,
so he had a second
he had a
job as
second
well.
job.
Okay, yep.
And I remember being like, huh, really?
I can do that.
No, I remember thinking, I didn't know that. So I called him next day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I said,
Okay.
hey, what's the deal with this? He kind of gave me some lowdown on it. And again, in the line of work I had, you have a lot of time on the road.
Yeah.
So I remember downloading a few podcasts and being like, huh, this is interesting. Or this sounds interesting.
Yep.
So then I wrote the license, passed, and then got onboarded with like that brokerage where I ended up meeting Sue.
Yep.
And I was like,
The brokerage, which won't be named.
yeah, it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't.
But I remember I was like, this is actually getting really interesting. I started doing some of the training with them.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really cool. And I thought, okay, I want to give this a go.
Okay.
And like it's easy for me to say now, but at the time I was like, holy Hannah, am I about to do this?
Yeah.
And when I say I wanted to give it a go, I wanted to leave my day job.
Oh, okay. You never did you? You left, but you moved
I did
to.
leave it.
Oh, okay. How long were you in between?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
Um, see, more things you don't know.
More things.
So I left, and I said, I'm just going to give this a go. And I remember a few people were like, well, what if it doesn't work out? And I said, my plan B is what my plan A was like X amount of months ago.
Right.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
So I left the industry. And then I knew the timeline I had for I was like, okay, if things are slow, I got to go back at this in this time.
Right.
And in the meantime, Sue and I started working together and we started whatever,
Building.
building, moving brokerages, yada, 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 yada. But then I ended up getting, it was another license I held related to my other industry.
Okay.
So I got back into that because it gave me this variable schedule,
Right.
which was X amount of days at work. You got a little more free time.
Yep.
You're not as chained. And so I said, okay, let's give this a go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's.
Okay, so the original question was,
Would you do it again?
would you do it again?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. I think.
Would you do it the same way? Did you learn something along the way that says, hey, you know what? If I could do something different that I think would make me better today than what I am today?
That's a good
That's
question. So the what I do it again. Uh, the reason I say yes is because the way I looked at it, in essence, hasn't changed.
okay.
And the reason I say that is, um, the goal always was to free up some time
Yeah.
or to have some flexibility.
Man, is that a lie that people tell us?
It totally is, but in other ways,
Oh,
it's
totally.
it's
It's
totally
totally
there,
true. Yeah,
right?
100%. Yep.
You just have to you got to put some effort into planning things and
Oh, yeah.
scheduling, and you have to be willing to sacrifice other things, which
Yep.
we've talked about.
Yep.
So the reason I say that is my my view on everything hasn't changed, but I think my perspective and timeline has.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
And I think that is what's I think good.
Yep.
Call it blind ignorance, whatever you want to call it, right? But to me, I say, okay, like the reason uh, the reason I'm putting the effort into scheduling my life so meticulously is a good word, and having so many things on the go is because I say there will come a time when I can, and I'm also fortunate in that I have Sue and we work together and
Yes, the partnership makes a ton of difference.
it makes a big difference. I got young kids, right? So we're building the whole family while I'm building the business, and we're doing this and that.
Eventually moving.
Yeah,
Sorry, Taylor.
that's a topic for another day. But yeah, I just say to myself, there will come a day when things change, when things shift, because we're not always in this mode of family growth in the sense of like wife's got to be home for the sake of kids.
Yep.
There's going to come a time when the kids go to school,
Talked about this yesterday.
right? And then
100%. It's freedom.
I know that she's not going to be like sitting at home all the time. I don't know in what capacity.
Yep.
Somebody still has to run the house because
Yeah.
I'm
The
not
house
really
runs.
around to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but there is a time when things shift.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I think as you spend more time, and funny enough, I was listening to a podcast on the way in today with two comedians,
Okay.
and what they were talking about was success
Ooh.
inadvertently. They
Oh.
mentioned how like the guy goes, "Oh, so you've been doing this for like 20 years?" And he's like, "Yeah, I went into his spiel," and the other guy's like, "Yeah, like part of it, our us even having success is that we were just dumb enough to stay in this for long enough, right?"
Yeah. And we look at things, differently because I'm a little bit older than
Yep.
you. My thing is, like you're saying about, things are going to change and, the kids are going to go to school. That's going to happen about 4 or 5 times to you
Yeah.
because when you look at it and think, okay, kid's going to go to school. Okay, now you put them in the school and it's 8:30 and you got until 3 o'clock that day. And
It's a lot of
it's
time
you got 6.5 hours and you're like, I could do a lot in 6.5 hours. That's the kids still need care when they come home,
for sure.
right? There comes a point where grade 7, grade 8, you don't have to really be there to take care of the
Yeah.
kids. They can get off the bus, they can do that stuff. So now it's 3:30 becomes 5:30 or 6 as long as somebody's home to make dinner.
Yep.
The next step is when they get their driver's license and you don't have to cart their butts all over the place. That's another level of freedom. And it
Yeah.
gives you go through these phases in your life and your business benefits from those changes as
Yeah.
well, because it does free up your time. It does allow you to, you all of a sudden, you're a parent, but you're not a full-time parent. You're not a caregiver parent where you
Yes.
have to manage the other people. And it becomes different because like you were saying about you get to make some choices.
Mhm.
I left yesterday to go from where I was going to get back so I could go and watch my kid's football game,
Mhm.
right? The football game for that 3 hour window became the priority.
Yeah.
And you get this, that's the flexibility that you have. And then I went home and I uploaded a podcast and
Yep.
got all that stuff done, but it was done at my schedule,
Yes.
right? And my clients weren't in the way or anything like that. My clients are never in the way. That's the wrong word for it. So don't, if you're listening,
How dare you?
I know, right? But you have this ability to manage your life a
Yeah.
little bit better, whereas your work schedule isn't managing your
Well,
life.
and I only speak to myself here with that other job that I still carry. I think that you have a lot of free time,
Yeah.
right? And you mentioned firefighters the other day
Yeah.
and how they often end up in your industry. If you have all this free time, what else are you doing with it?
Yeah.
Right? And if it takes you 10 years to build something that is good and solid in your eyes,
Yeah. And good and solid in your eyes, it's not going to be the same as what good
that's
and
why I
solid it
say in
is
your
for me,
eyes.
right? If you've got a wife and support is so huge to what we
Yeah.
do, right? At the time when I got into the business, Sue was a slot attendant,
Yeah.
making money,
Making
like
great money.
really, really good money. So I didn't have that
Mhm.
stress. I, where I struggled was we didn't have a lot of support family wise,
Mhm.
not because of for any reason, just because of geographic and
Yep.
stuff like that. So I was working while raising kids. Sue was working full time. So I had to juggle that
Mhm.
aspect of it. But I'll tell you that without her support, I would never have started. I
Yeah.
would never have left the casino. She's the one that kicked my ass and told me, you know
Get
what,
out, go do
get
this.
out and
Yeah.
go do this. If you're going to do it, now's the time.
Well, and it was the same thing for me. I remember when I was bringing this up to my wife because I've known her for a long time. She knows me fairly well.
Hmm.
And I was like, "What do you think?" I remember she was like, "I don't know. Like, what do you think?" Kind of being like, "What do you want me to say? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
have
yeah,
you made your decision already?" Like,
yeah,
um, and so it's nice to have that support, but it's nice to have the continued support.
Oh yeah.
because the one thing that becomes very clear, like for me, example, when I entered and I took the jump, the leap,
Yeah.
that's when the rate hikes started, right? And things just became it just became a different world in the mortgage world, and I don't know that it's ever returned
It hasn't.
in the
Yeah.
exact same manner. But the cool thing that I always love hearing is when there's tough days and stuff, and I go, geez, like, ugh, you know, that was a rough one, but I think things are going well. And to hear that your partner go, oh yeah, you guys are killing it right now. You guys
Yeah.
have this going on, you have that going on, and you go, yeah, we are killing it right now, actually.
You must have heard the story about how I got started.
I don't
So,
know.
okay, so 2008. Okay, do you remember 2008? I know you're young.
I
So
would have
how?
been in grade 8.
Oh, good lord. Okay, so 2008, the market collapsed.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
in the United States, and that was the shortfall mortgages and
Mm-hmm.
where they started selling mortgages and the market collapsed. So April 1st, 2008, I get licensed. I joined Coldwell Banker. I'm trucking along doing some of the stuff that we've talked about in the
Mm-hmm.
past, and about 5, maybe 6 weeks into my career as a realtor, the
That all
market
happens.
that all
Yeah.
happened.
And, and
Okay.
that's why when I say that the market shifted for me, like I go, that's not really an excuse. Like things
No,
change. The
no.
the world, the landscape you've got to adapt.
Oh, 100%. That was just the beginning for us. Okay. So that's the middle of May. Father's Day coming up. Father's Day, I turn to my wife and I say, "You're pregnant." And she's like,
Oh.
"No, I'm not." I'm like, "I know you. I've predicted the last two. You're pregnant."
Hmm.
I was There's backstory to that. I won't get into the details on it, but she's mad at me now. So she's like, "I'm going." I'm like, "It's Father's Day. You're not going anywhere." She's like, "I'm going to Shoppers Drug Mart. I'm getting a pregnancy test."
Hmm.
Yeah. So she goes to Shoppers Drug Mart on Father's Day, gets a pregnancy test, does the pregnancy test, comes out, sits on the stairs, starts crying. I'm like, "Why are you crying?" She goes, "I'm pregnant." I'm like, I
Called it.
just quit my job.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I just left the casino. I had 13 weeks of pay
Yeah.
coming. That was it.
Hmm.
And she's like, "Well, we'll figure it out."
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, we didn't speak again until September, almost literally. It was some pretty tense times in my house. But looking back on it, the market collapsed. I was going to become a dad of three
Yeah.
all of a sudden. I had two kids under the age of three already.
Hmm.
Well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You support one another.
Yeah. What can
Like,
you do?
what can you do?
Yeah.
Right. So she says, "Well, we'll figure this out."
Yeah.
And to this
Classic
day,
her.
oh, total classic her. And to this day, we still say it. We'll figure it out.
Yes.
Right. Like, like when the opportunity came up to buy the brokerage, I was like, "Oh, that's a lot of money." Like,
Hmm.
are we, she's like, "We'll figure it out."
Hmm. How bad could it
And
be?
what's the worst case?
Yeah.
And you know what? It's funny because, as somebody who came from being poor, like my parents came here as immigrants. We never had a lot of money, and coming here and then watching my dad work the grind,
Hmm.
the day to day grind. My dad has never worked. My dad has had one real job his entire life. My dad's 73 years old today, is still working at the company that hired him and brought him to Canada. He's been there
No way.
53 years.
Holy
Yeah.
Hannah.
My dad's 70. Dad, if I get this wrong, I apologize. He's either 72 or 73. I always get it wrong. So I think he actually turned 74 this year. But he still works there to this day. At his age, you know what? I think he wants to retire,
Hmm.
but I don't think he really wants to retire because it is such a piece of the fiber of who he
So
is.
that's
That's what real estate has become for
but
me.
that's an interesting thing because that's the flip side when I say that my perspective and timeline has changed. I go, there will come a time again where I don't, how do I put this? A lot of people that I see, they may retire from their day job whenever they're old enough.
Yep.
And they go, what else am I going to do now? Right.
Yep.
Because you got a lot of time or you retired fairly
Yeah.
early or
Yeah.
you can retire. And I go, even if this took me, and I've never said this out loud, but I go, even if this took me till that point
Yeah. To be really, really good at
to
it.
be really, really good at it, I go,
Don't tell my wife that.
don't worry, that's not the actual timeline that I'm working on. But I
Yeah.
said, in a worst case scenario, if I go, if it took that long, I go, okay,
Yeah.
right? Like,
It won't.
no, I agreed,
And and
and it's
and
not.
and you guys are still in your infancy realistically
Yeah.
of where you are, and you guys haven't seen an up market yet.
Well, the other side of it is that we're also dealing with how to build a team dynamic and grow uh, multiple people.
Yeah, you guys have got a lot to not figure out.
Yeah,
It's just I just think that when you're trying to do something like this, and the conversation about support, you guys have got the support of each other
Mhm.
as mortgage agents, but you also have the support of spouses,
Yeah.
right? Your wife is saintly.
Mhm.
To be home with three kids
Yeah, I
under
know.
the age of what where I can't even remember what
Three
your
under three.
oldest, three under three. Oof. Um, like to be able to handle that with twins and everything else,
Yeah.
bless her
Yep.
soul. But for you guys to support one another, like, we've talked about it numerous times. I'm going away for a long trip for us. You're going to be
Yeah.
managing that part of the business. So she has that trust in you. She has that, that you're going to support her while she's gone. You're going to be in, wherever you are next week, trying to,
Mhm.
avoid things. And she'll have your back.
Yep.
It is to have that support professionally, personally.
Yeah.
I think that you need both.
Well, I think that's why, if when you ask me, would you do it again?
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Okay, can I ask a hypothetical? You
Yep.
may not be able to answer the question. If you didn't have that partnership,
Which
would your
one?
answer with Sue? Because Taylor, I mean,
Yep.
our wives are our wives. They're not going anywhere, whether they like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, would you, if you didn't have that partnership now that you have now, where you have that support, that person, working with you, would your answer be the same?
It's a really good question. If I didn't have the support of this partnership, I think I do think I'd still be doing this. I think I would have found a different group.
Some a different support network.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
that's
I, I
fair.
think that that's what I've done always in every aspect.
See, for me, the answer is different. If I had never met Pat Schneider, shout out Pat, I talked to him last week. I probably would have bailed. And it's not because I dislike what we're doing. It was so hard in
Yeah.
2008, 2009. So perspective, right? Like, average price really, helps. I would have had to sell four times the properties
Yeah.
to make the same income now, right? And
The
it's
other
not
side of it is I'm
realistic.
also the grand optimist.
Yeah,
I'm a glass half full type of
and
guy.
I tend to be the other way.
But I think that I think that you're wrong.
Well, I could be.
I think that the things happen the way they do based on instinct and personality.
Yes,
And I think that if it wasn't this pack guy that you gravitated towards or resonated with, I think your path would have been different, but I don't know that it would have been different in the way that you think. I think you would have moved potentially brokerages. I think you would
I
have.
would not. I can tell you in 18 years that has never crossed my mind
Right,
ever.
because you found these guys early though.
Yeah,
So I what I'm getting at is I think your path just would have deviated in a different way.
maybe.
I think that the start point and the end point would have been the same, but whether or not you would have gone left to go around or whether or not you would have gone right to go around.
Hmm. I look at it and I say, so I can tell you two trigger things in my career that really made a big difference for me. Actually 3 days, and I can tell you what they were. The day that Pat came to me and said, "Hey,
Mhm.
I want to do this." The second was, and I'll give, and I give credit where credit's due. Um, I got put on the elected on the board of directors for the Niagara Association of Realtors, and Brad Johnstone came to me and said, "You're going to be the next president." And I was like, "You're out of your freaking mind. That's not
Not
what
my cup of
not
tea.
my cup of tea." Blah 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 blah. He said, "No, you're going to run the governance committee this year." He was the president. "You're going to run the governance committee this year, and you're going to step into the vice president role, and then you're going to be the president." I'm like, "You're out of your
Mhm.
mind." So we did a whole governance review, wrote bylaws, et cetera, et cetera. And the day that I had to go and present, I hadn't public spoken. In fact, when I was in high
Mm.
school, I avoided public. Like if they said there was a speech outside of the English class
Gone.
that you had to take, I ditched the class. I was like, I'm out. I'm done. I did not want to do it. So he made me do it. He made me stand up in front of 250 realtors. I'd been in the business 4 years. I didn't know jack squat. I thought I knew stuff, but I
Mhm, mhm,
like them people there were so much smarter than me,
mhm.
and he made me do it, and that was a turning point for me. The like being on the board and then getting sworn in as the president, that was big for me. And then the day I bought the brokerage, and the day, well, actually the day that Peggy Rose came to me
Came
and
to you, yeah,
said,
yeah.
"Hey, I want to
Mhm.
retire. I want to sell the brokerage. Do you want to buy it?" And I can tell you, I picked up Sue from CIBC. She was working at CIBC at the time. We went for lunch at Da Vinci's and got steak subs. And I said to her, I said, "I've been given this opportunity." She's like, "Take it." And I'm like, "Okay, but it's a lot of money." She's like, "Take it. Like,
Yeah.
we'll figure this stuff out." So she's been the biggest support, but I have had some
She
great
also
support along the way from others that I could never imagine.
the one thing I'll say about Sue and my wife, and
Yeah.
I don't know if it's women in general, they have gut feelings.
Oh yeah, they follow their guts all the time.
And we did this when we were living up north. We didn't buy a place on her gut feeling.
Really?
Yeah. We
Okay.
were getting ready to stay.
Okay.
This was like we went up there for a little bit. We had good jobs. We were gonna buy a house. We were in the negotiation stages. They were at 180. We were at 185.
180 for a
Okay.
house.
We were at 185. They were at 180.
Yeah.
And the other side said, if you guys meet
In the
in the
middle.
middle,
Bad negotiation.
it's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Well, we had actually brought them down a lot from what I
Yeah.
remember. Anyways, um, whatever. Our realtor at the time was like, "This is too much. You shouldn't even be paying this much for a house here." But I remember saying to Tay, I was like, "This is $2,500. Like, it won't matter. Like,
Grand scheme of things.
yes.
Yep.
What do you say?" Like, I always trust her.
Yeah.
And she was like, I remember where she sat, where I sat, and she was like, "No." She's like, "No, this isn't our move."
Really?
Yes. Even when we were house hunting here,
Yep.
this was in 2020, the peak of
Yep.
everything,
Insanity.
peak of insanity. We'd go through houses and she'd be like, "No, I don't, this one doesn't feel it. This one doesn't feel homey to me. This one doesn't feel homey." And the one that we bought, we'd gone through and offered on, didn't get it. And she was like, "That sucks. That one really felt like it was going to be ours."
Yeah.
The deal fell through.
Okay.
And then our realtor was like, "Hey, if you come up 5 grand, it's yours." And again, I said, in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
it won't matter. And it ended up being ours. And I was like, "You knew." So I always trust Sue's got
Trust
the
it.
gut
Yeah.
and Tay's got the gut. So when Sue said to you, just do it.
Yeah. Like
To me, I'm just
the
like,
plunge.
they knew.
Yeah. It's funny because when I think back and you know, I always ask Sue.
Hmm.
So I always get her opinion. I always go for that support. It doesn't always flow the other way because Sue quit her job. Sue had a disagreement at work, walked in, quit, and then she came home and said, "I quit my job." And I was like,
What?
"Huh, what next?"
Yeah, I mean, that also
like,
does not surprise me.
no, she's very impulsive
But
that way,
to be
whereas I'm not,
fair,
and that's
that's
good.
pretty much what I did when I left that job.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just think that there's usually a balance. There's usually somebody that's a little pragmatic about decision making, and there's usually somebody impulsive in a relationship.
I am what's the worst that can happen? I'll just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I bet you Taylor is not. She's probably
She's,
she's the
I fly by the seat of my
yeah,
pants. I fire from the hip.
yeah. I do sometimes. It's funny because in our personal life, I don't think that way. It's everything's planned. Like uh, when we travel anywhere, I'm the guy that I got to be at the airport 3 hours in advance because something could happen. Security could be bad. I'd rather be sitting there relaxing, having a drink, than worrying about getting there because traffic happens or something like that, missing the plane. Sue, on the other hand, would show up 10 minutes before, go through security, run down the hallway, get on the
But
plane.
here's the interesting thing. I would argue that both her and I are like that in personal life, but like I'm organized in my business life more than I am in my personal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, we got to the point where we were so chaotic. we had to calendar our lives.
Oh, I do that as
Like
well,
that
but
is it is like, and now I got Jordan onto the calendar, and you know, my inbox on my calendar, because we got a bunch of family
yeah,
calendars. There's got to be some days where she's put 30 things in that calendar. I know where my daughter is every moment
yeah,
of
I think that's
our
gonna
life
happen to
because of that
us.
calendar. Oh, you don't have a choice, especially in today's age. You just don't have a choice. Especially, you know, it's a little bit easier for you guys because of where you live.
Hmm.
So, you know, walking to places and doing things. I had to take it. Well, for years I had to take
Yeah,
him
take
now.
them
Now,
everywhere.
yeah, we don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, like the support that I get, it is it's what kept me going
Yeah.
during the really, really tough
Well,
times.
case in point, like whatever it was, a month and a bit ago, maybe not even a few weeks ago, when we recorded the funk episode.
Yep.
That
Get out of the funk.
get out of the funk, right? That's when I had Sue and I had a funk,
Yep.
and both her and I came. Actually, you had a funk too,
Yep. We are all going through the same
the
thing.
same funk. And I remember sitting on our patio with my wife, and I was like, "Ugh, this is awful." And she
Yeah.
was like, "You're just having a bad day.
Yeah.
You need a few wins." And she kind of just like set me straight and was like, "Just relax, pal."
Yeah. It's funny because this year's been challenging for our business across the board.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. There's so many external forces
Yep.
that we have no control over. The tide tends seems to be turning a little bit, you know, slowly. I think, you know, people are just realizing that this is the new norm for the next
I
little
think
while, and
that's
we
the
have to.
case.
And you know, like all the chaos that outside, control the chaos in your own life, and the other stuff will take care of itself. But I think we're at that point where you know you're just you're gonna get through it, right? There, you know, when you see that light, when that light down the hallway finally starts to appear,
Yeah.
it really does make a difference, right?
The
It is one of those
the other
things.
thing for me again, it comes down to perspective. So with the last month and a half being difficult, just in many different ways, with whatever stuff.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Sue last week about something, and I said to bring up the Dustin Woodhouse books again, the
Yeah.
Be the Better Broker ones. I said to her that
Dustin, we want royalties.
the good books.
The good books.
Um, but I said to her, everybody loves his books
Yeah.
because he gives you all these crazy war stories, as I call them, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that went wrong, what he did for it, and how he's able to come out the other side, and this and that. And I go, everybody wants the war stories, but they don't want the war. I
Yeah.
go, everybody wants to broker until you have to broker.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be a realtor until,
Yeah.
shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, this, whatever it was we were doing, I was like, this sucks. The here, like, we just have to get through. We have to do this, that, the other. But
Listen, it's funny because I left the house this morning. Sue was laying in bed. We got off to a late start. We were up late
she
last night.
messaged me early though.
Maybe it
It was
was.
like 7:30.
Yeah, normally we're up at
Mm,
6:30 between the two of us. But she was laying in bed, and I looked at her and said, and I've used this expression before. I don't want to adult
yeah,
today. I really didn't
yeah.
want to. I know she said to me. She said, "Just go to work. Just go
Uh-huh.
get it. Get what you got done." And I said to her, I said, "It's not that I don't. You know, I'm going to do what I want to do. Like I want to. I
Uh-huh.
love the recording. I love going and doing that
Yeah,
stuff. It's the 5 hours afterwards because we've got an appointment at 6:30 with
you got a
clients
full
tonight.
day ahead of you
We got
after this.
a
Yeah,
long day ahead of us after this." And I was like, I just, you know what? I want to go to the trailer.
yeah.
I really want to go sit on the deck and just do nothing.
Hmm.
And I don't have that luxury this weekend. It's, you know, it's a busy weekend, and
But this is the give and the take.
yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Exactly.
There, there,
This is
there
going to be a
are
busy
times.
weekend so that I can get
Yeah.
to, you know, the days of, you know, shutting it down.
Hmm.
And you know what, like in looking back now, I spent the better part of last summer on a beach,
Yeah.
working from a beach.
Hmm.
I'm not going to get to do that this summer, but I'm going back to, you know, I'm going to record some sessions from the trailer, right? Like
Yeah.
you know, like I'm going to
I think
do
it's gonna
that
be
stuff.
fun.
I think that's the kind of stuff we can do outside. Like we can go and sit and talk and do
Actually,
this
what would
stuff
be really
outside
cool would be to set up on your deck at the trailer.
at the tent, and just talk and, you know, see what
Yeah, we
happens.
can hold these suckers.
They made, oh yeah,
Or
we can get
the
other mics
yeah.
outdoors. We'll figure something out. We don't want to have the noise bouncing. But listen, and my wife would be the first person to say, "What a great idea! Just, you know, just go out and do something different."
Mhm.
And sometimes it's doing the different things
Yes.
that get us out of the funk,
Yeah.
right? Um, but you know, it comes down to her being there to say, "Do it."
Mhm.
right? And sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do it. And sometimes it's not, and she's not telling me to do it because she thinks I need to, it's
She
work. I
knows
have
you
to
need
do
it.
it. She knows I mentally need it.
Yep.
She knows I need that push sometimes.
And like,
And I think that's the stuff that doesn't get talked about enough is that, from a, yeah, she supports, yeah, business, blah, we talk business decisions, but sometimes it's that push when you're not struggling, but you just don't have the gumption.
mhm,
I don't have that get up and go
you
today.
got a lot of inertia.
And she's got to, yeah, I'm a big guy. It takes a lot to get this
Well,
guy going.
it's also the resistance to move.
And that's the thing, right? For me, it's like, it's easy to say no. And then somebody calls and something this and this and this and this and this. Like I played my golf league on Wednesday and I had 39 messages when I got off the golf course. And I was like, oh, I just want an afternoon off.
Yeah.
It took me 5 minutes to clear it
Yeah.
because I just said, okay, you know what, blah, blah, blah,
Sure,
blah,
sure,
blah, blah,
sure,
blah,
sure,
blah,
sure.
drop the
Yep,
phone.
yep, yep.
And I actually had to push myself so that we could go and sit and have a beer after the golf
Yeah.
round, right? Sometimes,
You're like, give me 5. I got to do this.
yeah,
And
and
nobody
you
cares.
clear it
Yeah.
and it looks overwhelming at the
Yeah.
beginning and you realize that there, you look at 39 on your phone, you're like, oh, dreading it. And then
Things
you
are,
realize that 39 is actually 6 because they've just gone enter, enter, enter instead of sending one big
yeah.
message and you've dealt with it in 5 minutes.
Things are often not as bad as you've made them out to be in your head.
Yes, 100%.
There's a better way to say it, but I just sometimes I go, there's something you're dreading to do, you do, and you're like,
Yeah.
that actually wasn't that bad.
That comes back to being your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And in this
Yeah.
and when you're a business owner, being your worst enemy without having that support could be catastrophic.
Yeah, because your feedback loop keeps running. There's nobody to
Yeah,
stop it, to
you
cut
don't
it
have that,
off.
right? Like, so we've been, we've been talking about offices and locations and all of this stuff recently, and one of the offices conversation came up, and I had a perspective in my mind. I was going to do this, this, and this, and Sue gave me a different perspective. It's not necessarily a bad perspective. It's just a different thing that I never thought of because she sees it from a different lens, right? So she sees
Interesting.
things differently than I do. No, nothing's changing from what we've talked about, but realistically, it was something to think about
And
what
consider.
and
Yep.
consider, right? And sometimes you end up in the
Yep.
same. End up in the same answer, but like you said before, you go from instead of going right, you go left to get to
Mhm.
the same result, and that was where I was with that conversation. But for me, and you guys are slightly different, but for me, because we're in the same business, we tend to have the challenge for us is we tend to roll in the same pace. So very rarely, like you guys were really, really busy for a stretch there,
Yep.
and I was really, really not. Kind of self-induced, um, but realistically, when the market's really good, we're both really, really
Yeah.
busy. When the market's down, if she's doing refis and stuff like that, that's one thing. But we're typically both not doing
Yep.
new stuff, so we kind of ride that wave together. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad because
You're both in it.
we're both in it,
Yeah.
but we also understand the emotional
Yep. The toll.
portion of that, the toll that
Yeah.
it takes. So like we've learned to manage that, and I think that for new people starting out when you're doing this stuff is you have to have a frank conversation with your spouse, right? Like one of my new recruits told me on Monday when we were doing her coaching session, I said to her, I said, are you guys okay? Right? Like I said, like, it's a struggle right now for even experienced
Hmm.
realtors. Are you guys okay? She said, yeah, we sat down the other day and we had a long talk about this, and he's still very, very
Yep.
supportive of me and knows that it will come. It's just going to take time. And, having that support of him, you could see in her face that it was invigorating to her.
Yep.
It was pushing her because she now didn't want to let him down
Hmm.
because of all the support that he's giving
Yep.
her. So she wanted to step her game up and say, okay, what can I do, to make it better
Hmm.
and accelerate this when, because he's the one that's sitting there saying, oh yeah, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay. Right. And those sometimes are the words that you
You
gotta
need to
know
hear that
it's
because
gonna
your
be
mental
okay.
dialogue was opposite,
Oh,
probably. Yeah.
100%. So, a support network's huge. It doesn't have to be your spouse. Sometimes it's business partner. Sometimes it's, your broker, your whomever that you rely on. Sometimes it's a
I
coach.
was gonna say,
If
so
you
I
got
guess
a
the big
coaching
takeaway from today is, would you do it again? Comes down to
support.
support.
Yeah.
Find somebody who can go through the stuff with you.
Yeah.
Whether it's that
100%.
office coworker that you vibe with, you guys do your business,
Accountability
yeah,
partner. Yeah.
accountability partner, somebody who you can leave stuff to when you do a vacation.
Hmm.
That's a big one.
Yeah. You have to be able to walk away.
Um, And I think that ends up being the big reason why I would say, yes, I would do it again. Yes, I will keep going.
That's good because we're stuck now, right? So, but like we'll continue this conversation because I think that what's next is from the conversations that we've had in the last few weeks is you know going from starting out and being fresh
Mhm.
and going through some of the trials and tribulations and what happens once you actually start to gain the momentum of you start to get some business,
Yep.
right? So we'll continue that conversation next time when we get together, or maybe remotely while you're away. All right.
Ooh.
So we'll leave it there today. Thanks for listening. Check us out on YouTube and on Spotify. And don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. We've got a whole 10 subscribers right now, so
I think that's
uh,
pretty good.
we're doing all right. We're doing all right. We haven't promoted it
Not a
yet,
whole
so
lot, no.
I think it's time to start promoting it. We got some sessions going. So with that, have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day.
Take it easy.
Peace.
Bye.